Not that it's news to anyone, but the Sacramento Kings have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. There have already been reports about it, basically going all the way back to, honestly, the offseason, but really at the deadline when they traded De'Aaron Fox. We have had a report on Sabonis, and now we got another one here on Sabonis and Derozan that we're going to talk about here today. But first, make sure you stick around and subscribe here to the Basketball Bulletin, where we keep you guys locked in with the entire NBA as news comes out, and you guys are not going to miss it because 80% of viewers are not subscribed, and they're absolutely missing out. So make sure that you are joining the 20% that is part of the community here. All right. So that being said, like I said, we've already talked about this. So Trevor and I have already done that a number of times. Speaking of which, Trevor, I don't know how things are going for him. He's out of power, won't have power until tomorrow at like 10 p.m. So it's pretty bad. Shout out to him. Hope everything's good. I've been texting him a little bit, but anyway, Demar Derozan and Sabonis are expected to have tough conversations with the Kings about their futures this offseason per Sam Amick. So the thing with this is that, this is, like I said, not a surprise. Nobody should be surprised by this. The Kings are this weird team that's indefinitely stuck in limbo. And they got pretty fun there for a couple of years with the whole light the beam thing. They were making the playoffs. I mean, they're still kind of in contention to make the playoffs, I guess. They're in the play-in range. If they wanted to try to push that far, I guess. But, it is what it is at that point. We would see what happens. They would obviously not get out of the first round. If they did, something went pretty wrong for the team at the top of the standings, I guess. But regardless, though, yeah, this is a weird situation for them because this is very familiar territory for unfortunate reasons. But they're going to have some questions to answer as it pertains to these guys. I personally, am in favor of the Kings just rebuilding. Again, I've said several times in videos that I understand why they haven't really gone that avenue. But I think when you trade De'Aaron Fox, you probably just need to rebuild. Bringing back Zach LaVine is fun. I have no commentary on Zach LaVine specifically. It's pretty cool to see him out of Chicago. I felt like he was kind of toiling away. However, he is still also doing that here in Sacramento. But I think that they'd be better off trying to get things done the right way. There's some rumors about them bringing back Vlade Divac, all these other things. And I kind of just don't know what the direction is with the Kings. That's how the general basketball world feels. And that's why these guys are like, what the hell's going on? What are we doing? What are we doing about their futures? Nobody knows what the plan is here. But they decided to stay extremely lateral. They didn't get any better. They didn't get worse and tank or bottom out or all these other things and just rebuild. And they're also in a weird situation where these guys are on the books for a lot of money for a number of years, specifically Sabonis. Sabonis is an interesting player because I think he's very good. However, I think he needs a very specific team around him to be successful. For example, I think you would really want a high energy, high motor defensive four alongside him. Ideally, one that's a lob threat. Actually, let's just say that he's Jokic light, and you want to put an Aaron Gordon next to him. That's what you're trying to do. And I think you would have a 3-and-D center, a 3-and-D small forward, ball creating point guard, somebody I don't know, Tyrese Halliburton, who they traded for Sabonis, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And maybe another 3-and-D 2-guard, Monk off the bench. I think you can maybe pivot the team differently, but their salary is kind of tied up with these guys, LaVine. But they've got some interesting guys, I will say, like Keon Ellis and a couple other players that I do like on the roster. But they're just in a weird situation where if the goal is to win 35 to 42 games a year, as they've done, then okay, I guess. But like I said, the reason they've been resistant to rebuilding is because they went through 17-year-long rebuild. And that's why it was very fun, the whole like the beam thing for them and their fan base. And so everyone finally got excited, had hope. And unfortunately, it only lasted a couple of years, right? They didn't really do much. They had some fun runs, but didn't make any real noise. And I always thought it was weird that they decided to bring in Derozan in the first place. I didn't think he fit any of what they were trying to do there. I thought that if you were going to have a team with the Fox, Sabonis is your 5, I think you needed more defense, more of a lower usage defensive player. I think that the reason why they decided to bring in Demar was because they were trying to appease De'Aaron, and he was the biggest name out there at that point that was available, but I thought that it was just the wrong decision. And Demar is going to be one that they're going to probably have to move on from. So here's a look at some of the metrics for Demar this season so far, analytically here. So they've been really good with Demar on the court, actually. The expected wins is 12, which is the second highest number of his entire career based on differential. So they've been pretty good with him out there. The offense has been really good, as you'd imagine. And for defense, he's mostly been a black hole, a lot of blue, but points per possession, he's about average. Like he's like right on the line. So I'll give him that. But he's not somebody that I would think that they would have on this team and be successful with. You know, it's interesting. They saw Chicago do the DeRozan Levine thing and we're like, oh, we want that, right? But again, Levine was like the only thing they could really go for unless they wanted to, because Fox was like, yeah, I want to go to San Antonio. They didn't really have a lot of flexibility there. They could have maybe waited to the offseason, but you know. So anyway, moving on from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Tyrese. Did they make the right decision shipping out Tyrese? They shipped out Tyrese, I think, in his second year, and that's quite unfortunate, but really crazy. First and foremost, Tyrese didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay in Sacramento. I believe he was saying he wanted to be a King for his career. Like, that's crazy. When somebody wants to commit to you like that, you have a young stud on your team, you don't just sell that guy, right? Unless there was some infighting that we're not aware of, right, between some of their guys, maybe him and Fox weren't getting along, etc. It's easy in hindsight to say, oh, they made the wrong decision because obviously Fox is no longer here. Obviously it didn't work out, while Halliburton seems to be thriving as the offensive fulcrum for the Pacers, who are now the 4th seed. It's really easy to say, oh, they made the wrong decision. And I can understand it from that perspective, but I will tell you firsthand that they made the wrong decision. I don't think that they should have made this trade. I thought that you should have tried to stick it out with those two guys, and I thought that it was promising at points. I don't have it open here anymore, I don't believe. Yeah, this is okay, so the first season of those two together, and I believe what happened is he got traded midway through the second season. But the first season, they were a positive on court together, but the second season, not so much. That could also just be because the pieces around them, the primary lineup they were used in together at the same time had only 220 possessions with Richaun Holmes and Markelle Fultz. Like it wasn't as great. So that's one of the things I would say. They were okay together, but as you see, they weren't transcendent on offense or anything. A lot of blue. You want to see orange. No lineups with them both out there fit to that degree. Now, the funny thing is when you pull away one of them and you bring it back, it mostly shifts a lot. So, for example, with Halliburton on the court, let me actually put De'Aaron off. And we'll do that really quickly. Again, this is the 21-22 season. De'Aaron Fox, filter, and let's do that because this still brought up some lineups with Fox and Halliburton together. They actually shift in a lot of different ways, but it looks like they didn't really stagger them as much as you would typically stagger two lead ball guards. But Davion Mitchell in there with Halliburton, Harrison Barnes, Mo Harkless, and Richaun Holmes is a positive lineup, mainly on the defensive side. So Halliburton wasn't able to make that lineup specifically pop on offense the way that he can now for a lineup that's pretty subpar. Sometimes the Pacers are a really good team, very good depth, but sometimes they have some players out there that are a little bit more of a liability. But anyways, if we look at De'Aaron on, and this is kind of why I think some of this is just that De'Aaron was just better developed at that point. Like he had more time to get acclimated. But overall, with Halliburton on, they were a -6. With De'Aaron on, they were a -4. So that's kind of how things looked when these guys were separated. Obviously, I'm pretty sure De'Aaron had the better overall statistics that year too. But Hallie has really blossomed. I mean, he's turned into a player that's a 2-time All-Star, All-NBA, all rookie team, assist champion. Like he is somebody that they absolutely, I think, gave up on too soon. And if they could, I think they would like to have him back as opposed to Sabonis. And again, I actually think Sabonis, I think it's a bit of a coin flip. Personally, I know De'Aaron has more cachet. He's more of the guy that you talk about, but I think it was a little bit of a coin flip who was the better player throughout their tenure together. But anyway, unless you want to just outright say Sabonis and you don't want to fence it like me. But but anyway, Halliburton is the guy that's going to give you 10 assists a game and 20 points. I mean, damn. Right? That's pretty crazy. And there was some question about his ability to shoot. I remember coming out of the draft because of funky shot, but he's a career 40% 3-point shooter. Like, I don't really see much of an issue here. He is one of the best, quote unquote, traditional or pure point guards in the NBA, if not flat out the best at that. And he is somebody that I think you can absolutely build a team around. Now, obviously, you want to maximize him by putting similar archetype of like 3-and-D guys around him, athletes, all that type of stuff. But there's not a player in the league you can't say similar stuff about. So, yeah, they're in a weird spot. Absolutely, I don't think was the right decision. And now they're kind of paying the price. They have to make some decisions with their roster here soon as well. But we'll see what happens. Again, not a surprise that the Kings are in this situation because they decided to sign those players, those deals, and just it was weird. They like a lineup of Monk, Fox, Sabonis, and then you mix in Levine later, obviously with the trade. There's no defense to be had, which is why when they shift in Keon Ellis, all their stuff fits better, slots better, they look better. It's weird. So they've got a lot of decisions to make ultimately, but hope you all enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the Basketball Bulletin. Oh, I forgot to do this, but I want to just rapid fire quickly do it. I did have some comments from Halliburton from the Sabonis trade. He was distraught, the biggest surprise of his life, cried his eyes out. This is not a guy you give up on, the guy that committed to your team. 6-player trade. You don't have much else to show for it. Quite crazy stuff, man. But hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you all later.